Good day, this is Professor Will, CBMD PhD. Today, Saturday, May 16, 2020. It is 7:51 seconds a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is a continuation on Corona. So let's get started here. COVID-19 lockdowns significantly impacting global air quality. Date May 11, 2020. Source American Geophysical Union. Summary. Levels of two major air pollutants have been drastically reduced since lockdowns began in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. But a secondary pollutant, ground-level ozone, has increased in China according to new research. Two new studies in AGU's Journal Geophysical Research Letters find nitrogen dioxide pollution over northern China, Western Europe, and the U.S. decreased by as much as 60% in early 2020 as compared to the same time last year. Nitrogen dioxide is a highly reactive gas produced during combustion that has many harmful effects on the lung. The gas typically enters the atmosphere through emissions from vehicles, power plants, and industrial activities. In addition to nitrogen dioxide, one of the new studies finds particulate matter pollution particles smaller than 2.5 microns has decreased by 35% in northern China. Particulate matter is composed of solid particles and liquid droplets that are small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs and cause damage. The two new papers are part of an ongoing special collection of research in AGU journals related to the current pandemic. Such a significant drop in emissions is unprecedented since air quality monitoring from satellites began in the 1990s. The only other comparable events are short-term reductions in China's emissions due to strict regulations during events like the 2008 Beijing Olympics. The improvements in air quality will likely be temporary, but the findings give scientists a glimpse into what air quality could be like in the future as emissions regulations become more stringent, according to the researchers. Maybe this unintended experiment could be used to understand better the emission regulations. It is some positive news among a very tragic situation. However, the drop in nitrogen dioxide pollution caused an increase in surface ozone levels in China, according to one of the new studies. Ozone is a secondary pollutant formed when sunlight and high temperature catalyze chemical reactions in the lower atmosphere. Ozone is harmful to humans at ground level, causing pulmonary and heart disease. In highly polluted areas, particularly in winter, surface ozone can be destroyed by nitrogen oxides. So ozone levels can increase when nitrogen dioxide pollution goes down. As a result, although air quality has largely improved in many regions, surface ozone can still be a problem, according to new research. It means that by just reducing the nitrogen dioxide and the particles, you won't solve the ozone problem. Worldwide emissions. Scientists use satellite measurements of air quality to estimate the changes in nitrogen dioxide pollution over the major epicenters of the outbreak: China, South Korea, Italy, Spain, France, Germany, Iran, and the United States. They found that nitrogen dioxide pollution decreased by an average of 40% over Chinese cities, and by 20 to 38% over Western Europe and the United States during the 2020 lockdown, as compared to the same time in 2019. However, the study found nitrogen dioxide pollution did not decrease over Iran, one of the earliest and hardest hit countries. The authors suspect this is because complete lockdowns weren't in place until late March, and before that, stay-at-home orders were largely ignored. The authors did see a dip in emissions during the Iranian New Year holiday after March 20th, but this dip is observed during the celebration every year. Air quality in China. The second study looked at air quality changes in northern China, where the virus was first reported and where lockdowns had been most strict. Researchers analyzed levels of nitrogen dioxide and several other types of air pollution measured by 800 ground-level air quality monitoring stations in northern China. Researchers and colleagues found particulate matter pollution decreased by an average of 35%, and nitrogen dioxide decreased by an average of 60% after the lockdowns began on January 23rd. However, they found the average surface ozone concentration increased by a factor of 1.5-2 over the same time period. At ground level, ozone forms from complex reactions involving nitrogen dioxide and volatile organic compounds (VOCs), gases emitted by a variety of household and industrial products. But ozone levels can also be affected by weather conditions and other factors. In victory over polio, hope for the battle against COVID-19. Date May 13, 2020. Source University of Virginia Health System. Summary. Medicine's great triumph over polio holds out hope we can do the same for COVID-19, two researchers say. For much of the 20th century, summer was considered polio season, and people were accustomed to seeing swimming pools and movie theaters closed to stave off the latest epidemic. Shaking hands was off limits, and even touching money was perilous. The ever-present threat of death or permanent paralysis from polio was part of life, as were regular social distancing efforts to limit the terrible disease's spread. For many younger people in America, the idea of living under threat from a serious infectious disease has been hard to imagine, at least until COVID-19. But now the story of victory over polio is even more resonant. Researchers highlight medicine's great triumph over polio, at least in the West, and hold out hope we can do the same for COVID-19. Nearly 4 decades ago, the United States was faced with a similar challenge, the race to develop a vaccine against an infectious disease. Infectious disease experts that are developing a COVID-19 vaccine demonstration of the ability of vaccination to prevent paralysis due to polio in 1955 led to nationwide celebration and invitation to the White House. Preventing polio. The editorial authors call the prevention of polio epidemics a signature success of science in the 20th century. But it was no easy task, they note, and the worldwide eradication of polio remains elusive. Researchers first developed an injectable vaccine in the mid-1950s. It was then tested in 2 million children, in what researchers call a Herculean effort. Today they write, the faith in and support of scientific research by the American public is arguably founded on the polio vaccine. An oral vaccine soon followed, developed by researchers, and the 2 vaccines have served as the armament of vanquishing polio around the world. There is a drawback to the oral vaccine, however, because it is manufactured using live but 2 weakened virus recipients excrete live virus in their stool. This can lead to disease transmission in communities with low vaccination rates, especially in areas with limited sanitation infrastructure. There are also rarely cases of weakened virus taking sufficient hold in vaccine recipient to allow person-to-person transmission. This has resulted in polio outbreaks in recent years in Africa and parts of Asia. To overcome this, with the support of funding of the Foundation, there is fast-tracking of clinical trials of a new version of the oral vaccine, much as scientists are fast-tracking potential vaccines for COVID-19. While more work remains to be done to eradicate polio around the world, the disease's conquest in the West speaks to tremendous power of vaccine research. Polio in America stands alongside measles, mumps, tetanus, smallpox, and more serious diseases that are no longer a serious threat. Hopefully in the not-too-distant future, COVID-19 will join that list. As the world faces COVID-19, the scientists conclude, it is heartening to see the same application of science to public health for COVID as the one used for the last 70 years of poliovirus research. Biases against the physically unclean extend to the sick, holding implications in the COVID-19 era, researchers find. Date May 15, 2020. Source Boston College. Summary. People develop biases against the individuals who are physically dirty as early as the age of 5 and carry these perceptions into adulthood, according to research. In the time of the COVID-19 crisis, the findings recognize similar biases against the sick may contribute to social marginalization of people who contract the coronavirus. In 3 experiments involving approximately 260 respondents, the researchers found children's and adults' biases were stronger when evaluating similarly aged peers and cross-cultural boundaries when tested in the US and India. The findings carry social implications for the current COVID-19 crisis, as they suggest that people might adopt negative beliefs and attitudes toward those who contract the novel coronavirus. With the exponential increase in the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19, people are increasingly likely to know somebody with the virus. It will be critically important for both children and adults to know to stay away from individuals who are contagious. However, it is possible that the stigma directed toward those who test positive for the coronavirus will last well beyond the course of the illness, and that other, less warranted avoidance tendencies will form and persist. Avoiding filth and germs is typically advantageous. However, when other people are physically dirty or sick, often through no fault of their own, such as being homeless or working a dirty job, the tendencies toward avoidance can lead to problematic social biases. Research found that children and adults from both the United States and India are less likely to trust information conveyed by people who are unclean, and they are also less likely to attribute positive traits such as intelligence or kindness to individuals they see as unclean or unhygienic. The researchers used 3 experiments to measure biases in children between the ages of 5 and 9, and adults against individuals who are sick or physically unclean, and determine whether these biases extend across culture. Respondents were shown photos of identical twins, one dressed neatly in a clean setting, the other in stained, disheveled clothing in a setting littered with trash. Research team's first study found that children and adults consider clean adults to be more likely to possess favorable traits than dirty adults, and adults have particularly strong tendencies to trust information provided by clean adults. The second study showed that only children view clean children as possessing more favorable traits than dirty children, but both children and adults selectively trust the testimony of clean children. A third study in India uncovered similar patterns of results. Taken as a whole, these findings suggest that people who are perceived to be dirty will be frequently mistrusted, marginalized, maligned, and misunderstood from an early age. Researchers conclude these biases are generally constant across different causes of dirtiness. There are not clear differences between biases directed toward individuals who are sick versus individuals who are intentionally dirty versus individuals who are accidentally dirty. In addition to the social implications for the current COVID-19 crisis, the findings may pertain to the certain segments of society labeled as dirty. The team is currently investigating whether dirtiness stereotypes such as labeling immigrants as dirty elicit similar social biases in children. Good day, this is Professor Will, CBMD PhD on infectious disease and microbiology. Well, hope you enjoyed listening and have a great day.